Kamala Harris's campaign recently released an ad that tries to portray Harris as tough on border security, and it even includes multiple shots of Trump's border wall, which Harris heavily criticized over the last few years.
Kamala Harris has spent decades fighting violent crime. As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border. As vice president, she backed the toughest border control bill in decades. And as president, she will hire thousands more border agents and crack down on fentanyl and human trafficking. Fixing the border is tough. So is Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Here to discuss is David Limbaugh, best-selling author, columnist, and lawyer. David, thanks so much for joining us here today. So why is it that all of the policies that we've seen from Kamala Harris are basically the ones that she's stealing from Donald Trump? Do you think that the American people are going to see through this and see Kamala for who she is?
Well, this question transcends all the issues, not just the border. Kamala is hiding from her record because she's been the incumbent with Joe Biden. It's a miserable record. So they now are pretending that Trump was the incumbent for all practical purposes and trashing the record and saying they're promising hope and change. It is the most ridiculous Orwellian scenario I think we've ever seen.
David, speaking of Orwellian scenarios, can you talk to us a little bit about the media's push for censorship right now? I mean, I think we're seeing something that certainly seems to me to be unprecedented, at least in my lifetime. What do you think about what's going on?
I posted a long tweet today about this. I think in addition to what we face if the Democrats win in the November election, are not just the horrendous substantive policies they will enact, but their authoritarian impulses against speech, against all kinds of free expression, will be implemented if they can get away with it. The essence of my tweet was, it's scary to me because Democrats and leftists, progressives, leftists, they're all together now, have this mindset that anything they don't agree with is misinformation. And so they think they're justified in suppressing our speech, both because it is damaging to the republic. I don't know how they rationalize this thing and deceive themselves, and might lead to violence. Of course, we see their speech is what potentially leads to violence, actually leads to violence. They're the ones who suppress the truth. They're the ones who suppress their low information voters from hearing the facts. The people who have nothing to hide want truth to come out as a disinfectant. And they want the remedy for bad speech is more speech. So you can bring the truth out into the open. And that's what the Republicans stand for. That's what Trump stands for. That's what MAGA stands for. And Democrats, horrifyingly, are opposing it. And we really have to be scared. It's happening in Europe. It's happening in Canada. They're criminalizing thought and prayer in the United States in some cases. And it's getting serious, and we can't poo-poo it. We're on the verge of a totalitarian state. Now, I don't care if people think I'm exaggerating. It's obvious. It's plain as day.
Yeah, it's very obvious. And you spoke about your tweets. You were tweeting all last week during the DNC. We saw a great RNC and people coming together in the theatrics that was out there for the RNC. How do you compare and contrast that with what you saw last week in Chicago?
Well, real versus fake, real versus surreality. I mean, what we saw at the Republican convention was so gratifying and uplifting on the heels of Trump escaping through God's grace an assassination attempt and then standing up spontaneously and yelling "fight" 3 times, and all that positivity that occurred during our convention and all that unity and all the talk was pro-policy. It wasn't demonizing Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. As you know, Biden's name was only mentioned twice. This was all about policy and what we could promise to bring to the United States, basically restoring what we had during Trump's first 3 years before COVID. Contrast with the Democrats, who have no policies to offer. Their record is objectively bad across the board on border, the economy, the military in decline, and social issues and the rest of it, men and female sports. It's all terrible, and yet their whole MO now is to present themselves as the repositors of joy, and it's all wonderful. But they can say all that on the one hand. They can create this illusion, this mirage, that they're joyful and that Kamala isn't inherently unpopular, which she has been all through, and pretend she's somebody she isn't, never having been exposed to the population, the voters, keeping her hidden in the basement like they did Biden for the whole 4 years, and then having all their convention speakers talk about joy while at the same time trashing, demonizing, vilifying Trump and the rest of MAGA, and talking about how terrible we all are, and then lecturing us for being divisive and hateful. Again, everything is surreal. Everything is Orwellian. Pray that the public will be exposed to who Trump and Vance really are through such media as Elon Musk, where it's not really just an interview. It's a conversation. You see, Trump is not threatening. He's not the ogre they depict him as. Same as J.D. Vance, who's been incredible on the stump and in press conferences. Make themselves available like they have been and contrast that. Then flush the Harris and the Democrats out by pressuring the media to force them out in the open, do the debates, then play her clips endlessly, showing how ridiculously contradictory she is and what a failed record she has.
David, I am a proud Rush baby, and I listen to him all the time, and I miss him now in moments like these. So with Rush as your brother, what would he have said about the DNC that just went on last week?
I think he'd say exactly what I'm saying, but more eloquent, more original, less predictably, and with more cheer. You know, I'm a funny guy when it doesn't come to politics. When it comes to politics, he used to make fun of me because I'm so serious. David, you're just like our dad. You're just always too serious. Yeah, I admit it. Guilty. Rush had a unique way of injecting humor into some of the most horrendous things. I'll never get over how good he was at that. And I think he would say that he predicted that if the Dems ever got in power in 2020, there'd be no limit to their extremism. And I, not that this is about me, wrote a book, Guilty by Reason of Insanity, I think in 2019, predicting the horrendous things they would do. Not that I'm a prophet or prescient like he was, but it was so obvious. They've told us who they are. And I also think, since you asked, Rush would say, and people ask me all the time, while it's not time to panic now, it sure as hell will be if these Marxists win or steal the 2024 election. And I think he'd remind people, this is important, he'd remind people of the Limbaugh theorem. I don't know if you remember that as an avid listener of Rush, but he used to talk about how Obama, when running for re-election, would act like he was running against somebody else's record so that he could get away from his own terrible record and claim that he was wonderful and he was promising hope and change. I thought I was getting some kind of delusion when I saw Michelle and Barack talk about how terrible the current record was, and they were promising hope and change from that record. So they're promising hope and change for themselves. But Rush and I were raised as patriots, raised to love America as founded, to revere the Constitution and the order of liberty it guarantees. And we were told we should fight to the death to preserve America as the greatest nation in the history of the world. And that's what he would be doing. He would be fighting like he always was. He was the tip of the spear. He took horrendous abuse for 30 years before any of the rest of us got involved in this. I mean, I was involved, I'm an old guy too, but nothing like he was, and took the abuse, being called racist and all the rest of it. And because of that, he was a groundbreaker. He was a pioneer and opened the doors for all kinds of conservative hosts and moderators and commentators. So I think he would say, fight, just like Trump. Let's fight. Let's not give up. We're going to win this thing. And I really believe we are going to win it. God has not given up on America, as demonstrated by his deliverance of Donald Trump from that bullet.